bookish friends, welcome back to Coffee Over Apples. My name is Steph. This is my favorite 10 books, the best 10 books that I've read in 2024.
It could change the world.
Some of these are going down as all-time new forever favorites, and some of them just like surpassed 5 stars. Words are not going to be enough, but I'm going to attempt to explain it to you. We're going to start at number 10 and work our way up to number 1. At number 10 is a book that I read as an ebook earlier this year. This is Mistletoe and Mishigas, which is a romance that I read by an indie author named M.A. Wardell. Highly recommend that you support. We love to support our gay indie authors. What I loved about this book and why it made it onto my top 10 books of the year list is because it's one of the most wholesome romances that I read this year, and I actually read a couple romances, more than I usually read. This one doesn't live rent-free in my mind because of its erotic aspects or anything like that, but more of the healthy relationship that it depicts. I absolutely loved these two main characters, and of all the romance books that I read this year, I feel like this one has the highest rereadability. Like, I can actually see myself picking this up again for the holiday season or just the winter as like a comfort winter read. This is following two main characters, one who is of a Christian background and another one who is of a Jewish background. It takes place in Portland, Maine, and follows one of the main characters who is a teacher. I think he teaches like, is it first grade? Something like that, and is in a relationship with the janitor at the school. This entire series revolves around teachers and like people who work in education finding love. Our main character is very openly and comfortably himself. He openly expresses himself as a gay man, and he enjoys things that are just bright and fun, and he's very extroverted. Whereas our love interest, who is the janitor, is very introverted. He's actually a veteran and he has PTSD. It's not that he's hiding his sexual orientation and expression. It's more of just like, it's not something that really is relevant to come up for him because he's not really interested in dating or in a relationship. This is a fake dating romance, but it's probably one of the better fake dating romances that I've ever read, simply because miscommunication is not really a thing in here, and if there is any kind of miscommunication, it's wrapped up very quickly and very easily and in a healthy way. Our characters hold space for each other in a way that is beautiful. What happens is our one character who is Christian is going to a wedding, and so they need a date to bring because the wedding is of someone who that they're still friends with but was an ex-partner of theirs, and they just don't really want to just bring their sister just like they usually do because there is a little bit of resentment there and feelings there, and so they're like, wait, I want to show them that I've moved on and I'm happy. Not that I'm clinging to anything, but I just want to show that like I am in a better place and actively dating in my life. So they need a date. Also, the janitor wants to bring home someone to show to their parents as they come over to celebrate Hanukkah. Their parents keep trying to like set them up with dates and arrange dates for them. And they're like, listen, mom and dad, I love you guys and I love that you're supportive of me and my lifestyle, but like I can find a date on my own. So they agree to be each other's dates, but also they're very actively like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we're fake dating, but maybe we should like actually give this a try because it just doesn't hurt and we like each other as friends anyway. So like maybe something positive can come out of this. And when I tell you that this story was just so sweet, so wholesome, I loved it. 10 of 10 recommend. At number 9, we have The Three-Body Problem by Cixin. This was a very unexpected 5-star favorite for me. It was the first book that I read in 2024 and I fell in love with this series. I'm actually currently reading book 3, which is on the shelf behind me here and is the third book and last book in this trilogy. I was also one of the few people in my book club that actually loved this. I love the hard sci-fi in here and what Cixin Liu did in like exploring scientific ideas and their applications. It's very speculative fiction. The way that different people are thinking that they can save the world while trying to solve the scientific problem that's being presented by a cult through a video game is like such a cool concept to me. I will say the only criticism that I have of this, because you can love things and be critical of it too, I feel like the character development in here was not good at all. Like, character development is not something that Cixin Liu does well, in my opinion, but that's where the show fixed the story. At least the Netflix Western adaptation of it really focused on character backstory and character relationship development, and that was exactly what the story was missing. So if you read this and you think, the characters are very bland and you're a character-driven reader, this will not do it for you, but I highly do recommend the show. For me, I love both. Next, let's talk about the creepiest horror that I've read in a really long time, Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. I read this book in less than 18 hours. I have done that twice in my life, okay? And this is the first time that that has happened to me, and I gave something a really high rating. Follows a little girl who is about like 7 years old, I think, 6 or 7. She lives at home with her mom and dad, and she also lives at home with something called Other Mommy that likes to come out of her closet at night and ask her if she can go inside her heart. And every day she says no, and Other Mommy gets a little bit more mad. And it's just like, ooh, that premise in itself, I immediately went to the library and picked it up. I need to get myself a copy of this because I could reread this, because I am a very visual reader. When I read a book, it's like watching a movie in my mind, and there are certain scenes where I can see hands coming around door frames or eyes peeking out of a closet, and I just tell you, the way that this book got me, the jump scare was real. 10 of 10 recommend, and apparently the audiobook is narrated by a little girl or someone with a younger voice, so it sounds like it's the little girl who's telling you this horror story. I actively had to put it down at some points, be like, whoa, that creeped me out, I got the shivers, it's a little intense, let me just put it down for a second and come back like after I drink a cup of water or something. It was just so creepy, and when I tell you that I am so excited for this book to be picked up as a movie, I saw recently online that Blumhouse has picked this up to create a movie adaptation, and I am so excited. This one was a shock. I was like stunned when I gave this 5 stars, because this really did revitalize my opinion that YA can be amazing for both young adult readers but also for adult readers. This is Blood Scion by Deborah Falaye, and when I tell you that after I finished reading this, first of all, I cried. So, you know, just one thing about me is if a book makes me cry multiple times, there's a high chance that I'm gonna love it, because it really made me feel something. It impacted me in a way that I wasn't expecting. This did that. I was on the couch just sobbing. I was like, oh no, these poor characters are going through so much. Book 2, which is coming out in 2025. So this is taking place in Africa, and specifically it's following a young girl who I believe she's 15 years old. Her heritage is that of the Yoruba peoples. Magic system in here is based off of Yoruba folklore, and there are certain individuals which are called blood scions that carry this magical bloodline in them and have access to different abilities. Our main character knows that she has some of this ability, that she's inherited some of this ability. And the sad part about this is that blood scions are being hunted because there is a foreign colonizing body that has come in and established this army in which they force young peoples from the surrounding countries to become child soldiers. And it's very much straightforward in that these foreign bodies are a white establishment that is stealing culture from African societies and appropriating it in ways that are just completely unacceptable as they exterminate these people and their cultures and claim it as their own. And so she is forced into a situation where she becomes a child soldier. She is not going to settle for anything less than attempting to dismantle the system. And it's just the things that she goes through, the decisions that she makes, and the resolution of this is just... I was not emotionally prepared for the things that this character goes through. It is so dark. This book is really dark, and I wasn't expecting it to be as dark as it was for a YA, but it was incredible. Cannot wait for the next one. The friend who sent this to me, I am eternally grateful for, because my God, it was so intense and so good. So again, 10 of 10 recommend, but be in a good mental headspace for this. Next we have I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. I picked this up when I went to go listen to Stephen Graham Jones have a talk with Grady Hendrix at Strand earlier this year, so I got a Strand signed copy, and I had so much fun with this. We're following a main character who becomes a slasher, and we know that because what we're reading is like writing that he's written about what happened 17 years ago when he was a teenage slasher and how he came to be a slasher. And this plays with the slasher genre by flipping it on its head and just making it as ridiculous as it is sometimes. Like, you know how in slashers the slasher never dies? They're almost poltergeist-esque in a lot of ways, like Freddy and those kinds of things. Like, it plays with all of those tropes and plays with it in ways that are really unexpected. I found this book to be both sad and funny. I'm not sure because I have a very specific taste and like way of framing things when I see horror as comedy, or when I see certain things in horror being played out in parody. So I love that so much. And this book solidified something about that kind of writing that I didn't really understand about myself before. So I love this. The ending made me cry. It was gorgeous. I did not see the ending coming. I should have, and I'm a little bit upset that I didn't see it coming. But for me, if you love Stephen Graham Jones, you need to pick this one up. At number 5, we have This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous novella about a sapphic romance between two spies, mercenaries, I guess that's what the closest thing I could describe them as, from opposing forces that are both trying to move through time and space in order to make sure that at the end of time, or when history is resolved, that their team ends up winning the war. One side is very much like, think mecha, think aggressive, think warmongering, I guess would be the closest way that I can describe it. And the other side is more of like natural druid planting seeds, long game kind of stuff. And it's so interesting because our characters don't really meet in the beginning. It opens up with letters. And so each of these chapters is essentially us reading a letter that one of them wrote to the other. And it starts off with them just kind of admiring the skills of a mercenary who's at the same level as them on the other side of the front line. And it's just so gorgeous, so romantic. This is one of the most romantic romances that I've ever read. And if you're looking for a quality sapphic romance, oh my God. 10 of 10. I understand why the internet blew up over this book. It deserves everything and more. At number 4 is Wrong Is Not My Name by Erica Cardwell. I read this earlier in 2024. This is a memoir that critiques the current state of art and the intersection between Black identity and art making within like the past 4-5 years. The author talks about their time in graduate school and moving through arts residency and like working in not-for-profits and the way that current systems and organizations impose an expectation of Black bodies in those spaces. It also talks about grief and that the author lost their mother, and so they're processing the loss of their mother while still trying to find their identity, both as a woman but also as a queer person and also as an artist. and also as a Black woman, and it's just so moving. I actually feel like I should mark this as read twice, because when I tell you the amount of times that I just immediately reread chapters, like I feel like I read this book twice in one sitting, and I cannot recommend this book enough. If you want some sort of introspection into art right now and how the art world currently functions, especially for people of color, I highly recommend this book to you. Number 3 is Human Acts by Hong Kong. I made a video earlier this year in which I talked in depth about this book. I will try to drop that link up above so you can go watch it. And when I tell you that this book moved me on levels that I was not expecting, this solidified Hong Kong as one of my all-time favorite authors, and I am so excited to read a new book coming out by them in 2025. This is a story about the voiceless being given space to be recognized for their sacrifice. It focuses on the Gwangju uprising, and the author wrote this after meeting with family members who have survived and gave permission to the author to write the story of what they speculate may have happened to their loved ones after they passed away, standing up during that revolutionary period. And it is so sad because we start off with these kind of like recollections of exactly what happened that are based off of the interviews with those family members. And then after that point, once the family member is removed because they were separated from their loved one, it continues in the POV of the person who passed away, based on information that the author gathered that they can speculate this may what have played out. The whole point of that is that it really shows the importance of standing for one's values, especially in the face of government extremism, fascism, whatever the case may be. In this case, I believe it was a dictatorship that was kind of coming in, trying to eradicate anybody who disagreed with their policies, and citing very horrible things that were said during genocides in other countries by other political leaders as reasoning for their actions. And what I loved about this was that it showed so much nuance in how the human spirit is resilient, but also how the human spirit breaks, and when one person's spirit is broken, that has a rippling effect amongst its people, and the people who are actively listening and paying attention and recognize the sacrifice that was made, that the sacrifice is so much more than the individual experience, that it is a societal impact when we fail a specific group of people or even a person, that is a failure on our society and our government as a whole. And I just, this book was just so sad. When I tell you that I read this over the course of a week, each morning with my cup of coffee, and my tears, just my coffee was salty with my tears. If there's any book that you need to pick up out of this video, it's going to be number 3, number 2, and number 1. Okay, just please pick these 3 books up, this one and the next 2 that I'm going to talk about. I can't talk about them enough. Number 2 is In the Dream House by Carmen Machado. This story hit me on a very personal level. This story resonated so much with me. This is a memoir about domestic abuse. This is a memoir from a lesbian woman who talks about being in a domestic violence, an abusive situation with a significant other, and how not only why victims of domestic violence need to be given more space to be heard, but more specifically how queer communities are impacted by policies that are specifically made to silence their voices in regards to these kinds of situations, because if their voice is heard, then it gives validity to queer relationships that should be given more financial and institutional support to make sure that people are able to succeed in their marriages, in their civil unions, and whatever the case may be. But by silencing these voices, it takes away the agency from these individuals being able to claim that they experience domestic abuse, so that they cannot receive any kind of benefits or support or backing of any kind. It's so messed up, and it's just so sad. And what I love about what this author did was that each chapter specifically comes from a different title, like based on a genre of writing or film or whatever the case may be, that frames these vignettes of their memory. Major trigger warnings for a bunch of different things. It does deal with some violence, homophobia, sexual assault, things of that nature. There are chapters in this in which they cite different court cases that were treated in a specific way or thrown out or not given legitimacy because of the identity of the queer people that were involved. Women, whether they are the victim or the perpetrator, are really not given any kind of like gravity or gravitas to what they are experiencing, or the fact that women can be sexual abusers. So just the words that I have can't explain how incredible this book is enough, and I need a physical copy of this so I can reread it and annotate it. And I just words, I can't. I love it so much. But at number one, which just became an all-time new favorite, I need to read everything that this author has ever written, Kindred by Octavia Butler. This book, man, this book made me cry, sob. It is gorgeous. It is a masterpiece. I love her so much. The nuance that this book has and that it explores in regards to systemic and generational effects of racism is just impeccable. We are following a woman who lives in 1970s America with her white husband, and something happens that sends her back in time, in which she is confronted with a white ancestor who is also a plantation owner and owns slaves, and he keeps doing messed up things that are going to cause him to die. But if he dies, she and all of the people that she knows as current family members in the 1970s will cease to exist. So like, what does she do? How does she stop this man from being a horrible, hateful, racist plantation owner, but also not let him die? Like, what does she do? Oh, so visceral, and just the turmoil, the emotional turmoil that this character goes through. And I know that this is classified as a science fiction, but there's something in the back here in the version that I have in which the author specifically says the time travel aspect is the least important part. Please do not listen to that. Don't focus on that. Forget about that. It's the why, not the how. I don't know what else to say, but I have an entire like 1 hour video review that I did because this was a pick for the sci-fi book club that I run, the Interstellar book club. I'll link it up below so you can watch that and hear me gush about it with a couple of my friends. And I just, oh, Octavia Butler, I love you so much. Okay, those are my top 10 reads of this year. I am so excited to talk about them, and if anybody wants to talk about them further or gush about them, whatever you need to say, please drop it in the comments and let me know if you've read these or you plan on picking them up. And just, I can't believe it. Like, this ultimately came out to be a wonderful reading year because I read like something like 57 or 58 books, and I gave like 10 of them 5 stars. I gave a fifth of the books I read this year 5 stars. To me, that feels like a success. Anyway, you can support my channel through a couple of links that are found down below, and I post videos whenever I feel like it. Thanks for watching. Bye!
Mr. Wonka worked the factory.
In your wildest dreams, you could not imagine